Well, if that person feels like it was for their own survival,
yes,
because that's the thing. I'm a hypnotherapist, so for me, there's no such thing as bad behaviour.
Okay.
There's only limiting behaviour.
You're not hypnotising me now.
No.
Okay.
There's only limiting behaviours.
I'm not under the
No.
Okay.
Just keep looking into my eyes.
I'm gonna
As a Muslim, I have a mechanism to clarify that this is wrong.
So
how would you, as someone who is, a spiritualist, come to this understanding? How would you tell the Chinese they're wrong? What justification would you give them?
But can you see the need now, where if we want to have a well-defined moral code,
God makes it
that
objective.
we need we need an objective presence there.
That's the opposite of anarchy.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
Would you accept that, Parky? Let's
I ain't taking Shahada.
No.
And it's more pantheism.
Okay.
Knowing that it's with the self-control of your own mind.
Yeah.
That's which God has given you.
Yeah.
You can attain things that you want. You know, and there's going to be things out there that are temptation for you. That will lead you down a bad path.
Yes.
But it's you as a human being to have that foresight to know where will this lead me.
Yes.
And that's why
And when you say a part of God in all of us, do you mean that in a sense that where we would regard God as merciful and so we have mercy as well, so that in that sense, or would you say in a physical presence of God being in all of us?
Okay, so in a much more like abstract way than that. So they done a scientific experiment and they put a plant in a room that's linked up to the light is linked up to a random number generator. So the light is going in random parts of the room. Okay. So when they put the plant in there, what they found was that the light was actually directing itself onto the plant. Right. So what does that tell us? That could tell us that life wants to live. Yes. And I think that is the meaning of life. God wants us to live.
So you feel that perhaps the plant was influencing the light, and it was sort of influencing it to shine on itself more. Then so I haven't actually seen that experiment. Have you seen that experiment at all? Okay. So in Islam, what we believe is that God is a separate entity from creation. Indeed, we have, let's say, glimpses of the...
So that experiment was a glimpse to that.
So we say glimpses of, let's say, the inherent qualities of God. So there's mercy in the world. We believe that God is all merciful. We believe that there's knowledge in the world, but our knowledge is limited. But we believe that God has all knowledge, perfect knowledge. So in that sense, I suppose we could have some common ground.
Yeah, definitely.
But in terms of controlling our own destiny per se, we would say you have to do your very best to alter your circumstances, whatever those might be. So if you have no knowledge, the only way of attaining knowledge is that you don't just pray to God, you have to open a book, you have to go to a lecture, you have to, right? And then we believe that God opens that path of knowledge to you. So knowledge comes from God, but you have to still do your best in terms of trying to facilitate your own knowledge or understanding of that knowledge. I mean, would you disagree with that type of definition, or?
Not necessarily.
You're quite a relaxed guy, aren't you?
You have to check me for a pulse sometimes.
That's too relaxed.
I'd say, if it's making you if it makes you feel like a complete and whole human being, and it leads you onto a good path, then you're not hurting anyone. Then why should I interfere with that?
But do you believe that there is a right way and a wrong way, perhaps, to access God? Because you see, if we go by feelings, we know that people often do the most heinous crimes, and it makes them feel good doing those crimes. So, for example, a person who has done, let's say, massive insurance fraud, massive insurance fraud.
Speaking from experience?
No, I'm not actually. And he's sitting in the Bahamas, let's say. Yeah. And he says, well, I didn't really hurt anyone.
Yeah.
Maybe I nicked a pound off every person who was insured.
Yeah.
But hey, look, I've had a fantastic life. I'm enjoying it.
Has God got time for that type of subjective morality?
No, but my point to you was...
No, but does God have time for that? Because we do.
Yeah.
We can ponder that, but does God?
No.
I don't think he does.
But the point here is this. That person is led by something that makes them feel good.
Yeah.
Would you have a yardstick to measure whether in fact that thing that person was doing was indeed good or bad?
Well, if that person feels like it was for their own survival,
yes,
because that's the thing. I'm a hypnotherapist, so for me, there's no such thing as bad behaviour.
Okay.
There's only limiting behaviour.
You're not hypnotising me now.
No.
Okay.
There's only limiting behaviours.
I'm not under your spell.
No.
Okay.
Just keep looking into my eyes.
No, I'm gonna over there now. Yeah, look at my eyes. Look at my eyes.
No, but so there's only such thing as limiting behaviour. So for me, I would want to find my client, what would they think of what do they have as their limiting behaviour? So up until that time, they're still alive. They've survived with that limiting behaviour.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's successful because it's kept them alive to that point.
Yes.
And the only thing is that what triggered that behaviour was something, their level of understanding when the first incident happened. The age. So let's say let's say I get bitten by dogs. Let's say I get bitten by a dog when I'm like 6 years old. Yeah, I'm going to be scared of dogs for the rest of my life. But it's not really all dogs. I'm scared of one dog that's given me a bad experience. So my level of understanding and behaviour stays at the age of a 6-year-old. So when I go, it's because I'm acting like a 6-year-old. So these people that have those behaviours that you deem as like immoral, they see themselves as them doing the right thing. So it's all very subjective, and that's what I'm saying is, does God have time for our subjective morality?
The way you approach that question is important, I think. So I think when you're approaching that question, you need to take a few steps back.
Okay.
So first of all, we need to have at least an agreement or an idea of what each other thinks about what God is.
Yes.
And because we fundamentally differ on that, we're coming out with different answers at the end of the equation.
Yes.
Now, I think in my view, I think this is a problematic approach. I think that the idea first is because you're talking about God as if this is at least a conscious being that can make judgments, because you're talking about does God care about?
Well, no, has he got time for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the same. So you're sort of talking about an entity and you're asking whether or not this entity has time for our moral dilemmas, right?
Yeah.
Now, that presupposes there is an entity, but the way you described earlier, you sort of said, you said the pantheistic idea that God is somehow eminent within everything, within the creation. So the question that comes to my mind is are you saying that God is some intrinsic, fundamental, I won't say particle because we're talking spiritually, but some sort of presence within everything?
Yes. It's a very hard one because I don't want to. It's a hard one because.
I'll tell you why I asked. I'm not trying to set you up or anything. But so the reason that I'm asking the question is, if you think that God is this thing that's sort of in everything. Be that, and you mentioned the plant. So whether that be an inanimate, like a rock or a plant or a tree, or human beings or sentient things. Then the question comes: is it more concentrated in you, or is it, you've heard of the.
So you're saying like the rock would be like the squash, would be like the orange squash with the water in it, and I'm the actual the juice.
Because you can say, is that whatever that is that you're saying is a divine spark, is that within you more than other things?
No, I wouldn't say. Like in terms of our sentience, like we are the first known beings that have this thing called thought. We can think for ourselves in a sense. So I don't want to say that there is a hierarchy in God's world, because it should be everyone and everything coinciding with each other and getting along. So it sounds very like hippy dippy, wishy washy.
Sounds a little bit vague.
Yeah.
But not wishy washy.
Okay.
I'm trying to just iron it out.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's just like we're going to have to come to and fro with some.
Yeah, of course.
To understand each other. So the thing that I'm trying to say is that if God is this thing that's sort of everywhere that you believe in everything. almost like if you imagine this is the air and we're all in the air, but actually this air is also in us and everything permeates throughout, then there's no focal consciousness, mind, or whatever. We are local manifestations of this thing that they seem to have consciousness. A plant, you said, had to a certain level because the light, you said, was burning. We have a bit more because we are more sentient, more conscious than other things. So then the question comes is then how are we determining what that God is interested in or not, has time for or not? Because if it's part of you, then whatever your concerns are its concerns.
My concerns. I'm a bit intense. I think that the world that we live in is very warped and distorted, and we're a very inefficient race of people. You know, if you look at how much wastage of food that we go through, the amount of homeless.
Absolutely.
We're a very inefficient race, and we think that we're the be all and end all, and I don't think we are. I think we can do better than this. We don't have to settle for this, and I think God doesn't want us to settle for this, really.
So you know this, because you've done the same thing.
Yeah, I know.
You referred to this being as if it was a separate entity that's not. It's something that we can either return to and then ask the question, what is it that you want from us? I would say if you're a pantheist, God is everywhere, then there isn't this localized consciousness that you can refer to. Unless you're saying that consciousness is affecting your mind to bring you about your morality, your thought, and telling you this is what I want. Is that what you believe? Or?
No, I don't believe that.
I agree. I don't believe that.
I don't believe that. It's more of a sense of that. I'm confident in what God has given me, you know, and my capabilities. I'm confident in those, and I'm grateful for that gift, you know. So to sort of say, God isn't in that person, and He's more in that person. I feel it is a bit of we do introduce a hierarchy, and I feel
hierarchy between what?
Between man, and
each other.
And I don't think there should be a hierarchy between man. I think it should be more of not a communist sense, because the communism doesn't work, but more of a progressive anarchy in a sense. In case of you're growing your food in your garden, I'm growing my food in my garden. But let's say I need an onion, he's got onions, you know. So we trade, you know. And it's we all get along like that. And
you're not having any of my onions.
Well, all right.
I love onions.
You don't have my carrots. I grow nice carrots.
Oh, all right. Maybe we might be able to do it.
But so coming back to that, so if what you've been given from this seeing, absorbing everything, is leading you to have these good thoughts, that's great. There may be another being, another human being, so just who has what we would say negative thoughts. Right? So, for example, I want to kill every third female that I see, and they're a serial killer. So the question is, how would you then approach that person and say, this is what is right, this is what is wrong, this is what you should do, you shouldn't do? Or are you going to say that if you come to this way of being, and this being has come from this, and this whatever this pantheistic being has put into you?
So, as a hypnotherapist, we can. There's many exercises that we can do to help that person deal with those intrusive thoughts that are that are driving on impulse.
So where are those thoughts coming from?
They come from bad stuff happening to you as a child or as a baby, and then your child brain processing those thoughts, and it creates what we call badness.
So self-generated or externally?
It's that whole thing of it's nurture versus nature. So our nature is to be good, you know. Our nature is to be looking after the elderly, looking after children, sharing our produce, you know, and making alliances. That is our core essence of being what it means to be a human.
So the question.
So all of those bad things, when it comes to not looking after the elderly and children, comes guilt. You know, when we don't fulfill those actual human needs and human driving forces, when we don't have those, that's when the psyche becomes distorted and warped, and it requires other things such as like going for the pleasure principle of like going and having meaningless sex, junk food, you know, just like that sort of thing, you know.
So this is sort of, we need to sort of unpack this a little bit. So empathy is something that we learn. You have to be shown how to be empathic.
Yes.
You usually learn it by the age of 2. If you don't learn it by that time, afterwards you'll become less empathic compared to other people. That's a nurture thing. So okay, we accept that. The question is that whatever situation you arrive in your mind in terms of how I'm going to be in the world, you're saying that you can teach people to change their way.
Take a positive as it is.
Yes, you can.
The question really is that how are you judging based upon your idea that you arrive at your conscious, however your conscious being, because of this eminence of the God within everything, you arrive at a way of being in the world. They may say to you, say if their justification is, look, I'm a serial killer. This is how.
You're on camera.
That's right. I've arrived at this idea that this is how to be in the world.
Okay.
On what basis are you telling me that I'm wrong? This is not a way of being. How do you?
Well, you clearly look at the lives that you're affecting. Okay, so you take one life away, you hurt a family. You know, you're taking away you kill someone's father. Taking away not only, you know, you're taking away the provider.
What if it's a homeless guy on the street?
Well, if it's a homeless guy on the street, that person still matters. That's still someone's son. That's still someone's child. So that person still means something to someone, you know. And you got that person, the murderer. There's a chemical imbalance there, you know. There's something really highly distorted going on there. It's not a case of this person has been through something bad. It might be something bad happened to this person, and it's created a domino effect of badness to happen. Like me, I've had some pretty bad things happen to me, but I'm not a victim of my situation. I'm a hero of it, you know. I don't allow myself to get externally affected by the world around me, because I internally am affecting the world around me, you know. I am a generator.
If that person who was this serial killer said the same thing, I am the hero of my story. These bad things have happened to me, and what I do is I cope with it in this way. And that way is I find the people that I will take their life or whatever, and this affects me in a positive way, and it allows me to deal with whatever situation I'm in.
See, like I'm not like I might look a bit hippie-ish, but I still believe in the death penalty. You know, if someone's a wronger and they just
are you a secret Muslim by any chance? Because a lot of not about the death penalty. A lot of the stuff that you've actually said though, in terms of being good to people, being kind to people, and these things for us, and I'm sorry I'm interrupting Imran, but they come from a definite definition or definite, let's say, way of how we should be, but that is not self-generated. It is from a higher power. So Allah tells us that it's wrong to kill that homeless person. It's wrong to kill that person over there, and it's a major sin, and in fact if you do that you will be severely punished. Now from your paradigm, I think what Imran is getting at is that you approaching that individual, why would your opinion be any, let's say, superior to that person's opinion? That's the point I think Imran's trying to make.
Is my opinion hurting my fellow brethren?
Where do you get that criteria from?
Pardon?
So you're bringing the harm principle, like, you know, I'm doing less harm, therefore.
Well, no, I'm not doing any harm. I'm not doing any harm,
Perfect.
am I? You know?
So why
that person is?
So the question is, why is that? How are you saying that this is better? If someone else says, look, this is the universe we find ourselves in. This is the world that we're in.
See,
we've evolved over these millions of years. You don't blame a lion for eating a gazelle.
Of course not.
Why are you blaming me for doing these things that I'm doing?
Because you're human, and there's other pathways that you can go down. You know, it doesn't have to be that.
So
killing people isn't the be all and end all of life.
I agree.
You know?
100%
it's
agree. The question is, how are you deciding? Because you did this thing where you referred to God as he's not interested in or have the time for. So the question that comes back to that first question: how are you deciding how we should be?
I'm not deciding. It's a case of what Muslims call it thithra. Is it thithra? Like that.
That's what I said. Are you sure? Are you sure you're not?
I've been coming speakers corner. I know the lingo.
You know the lingo.
But so it's intuition. So trust it.
Where does that come from?
I'd say God. I'd say God.
So then we come back to the way you're using the term God.
Yeah.
You're now using the same sense of a
okay,
being.
so actually, so it's not God. It's my own set of experiences that have led me down to make these decisions.
Okay. So why are your set of experiences more valid than this gentleman's set of experiences?
Because I don't know. I might have lived a much richer life. I might not be rich in pocket, but I'm rich in experience.
But the question is, how can you impose what you think?
I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't want to.
So if this person,
are you living a happy life? Are you living a self-sustaining, self-fulfilling life in which you're not hurting your fellow man? Then I'll leave you alone.
That's not the example that I'm giving. So what's your name, brother?
Marky.
Imran.
Imran, nice to meet you.
Martin, did
Marky.
Marky.
Yeah.
So Marky, the question was, if there is someone who is a serial killer,
yeah,
can you impose what you believe to be right and wrong on that person?
Not necessarily. I'd say I'm barking up the wrong tree, and they just have to, see you later.
And if they don't?
And if they don't, no, that's what death penalty. See you later.
So you would impose?
Yeah, I'd impose the death penalty, no problem. Because what are they doing to the rest of the world? How many other people are they going to hurt when we could just get rid of this person and save hundreds of people?
Okay. So now I'll give you a switching example now. Okay. Apologies for doing this.
Okay.
Because you built a principle. You said, look, if I can minimise the harm to others in the society, then I can carry out even killing.
Yeah, like they used to chemically castrate gay people.
That's right.
For being gay.
Yeah.
They should do the same with paedophiles now, to this day. Like in this day and age, like chemically castrate a paedophile, and then they can't abuse any children. Really. You're
going to be surprised because there are sociologists now who are writing about minor attractive persons. Yeah. This is the way they're phrasing it.
Yeah.
So these people are people who have attraction to minors, but they don't carry out any action. And they're saying that we should be understand because they're born this way. We should be understanding. So this narrative is quite it's permeating.
Yeah.
The question here is the same question. Yeah. You would impose the death penalty on someone if you think that there's a greater harm if they were not killed.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to give you an example of where a nation, an atheist nation, has decided that there is a minority amongst them who is a greater harm to the majority, and we're going to put them into camps. And in fact, we have 3 million Uyghur Muslims in China in camps. Yeah. The justification for this is straightforward. The justification
is disgusting.
No, I'm going to give you their justification. Look. These people destabilize our country, that we will deem them a terrorist threat. It is a lesser harm if we put these people in camps and we do whatever we're doing with them because we're protecting the 997 million other people from these 3 million others.
It's a very complex issue, isn't it? Because
it's not.
No,
it
but
really isn't.
When it comes to the Chinese government, like how authoritarian they have been with their people, like they think they're a communist country. It's not. It's a dictatorship. They're not allowed to vote their people. They're not allowed to vote their leaders in. It's really distorted. Their education. They are very authoritarian with their children. They make them highly educated. They make them work their fingers to the bone. So they haven't got time to rebel.
Marky, the question is, they've applied your same principle that you've applied to killing that serial killer because you're minimizing the greater harm to that minority within their community. The question I'm asking you then is that justified?
No, it's not justified.
Okay, why is there a disagreement? Because they've used what your principle is, but they've applied it on a national scale. Okay. So the reason why they're getting away with it is because they are the superpower that they are. And that's really it. Like the Western world is we are the Chinese dogs. Like they see us as like nothing really now. So that's how elevated they've got. Mao said it like 60, 70 years ago. Like stick with us, But you're going to have a shit life. Your kids are going to have a shit life, but your grandkids, they're going to be all right. And look at them now, So it's worked in their favour, but only for the Chinese, and they haven't taken in the encompassing people of China. So you're absolutely right. I agree with everything you said, but the question still remains. How would you? Because they've used your principle, preventing the greater harm, and they've applied it to this community within them. Now, as a Muslim, I have a mechanism to clarify that this is wrong. how would you, as someone who is a spiritualist, come to this understanding? How would you tell the Chinese they're wrong? What justification would you give them?
Well, clearly look at the lives that they're affecting. They're
saying, look, we've got 3 million people in camps. We're protecting 997 million people from the effects of these people. The greater good is these people stay in the camps. How are you going to tell them that this is wrong? Because it's wrong, right?
Yeah, it's definitely wrong.
So what's your justification? Other than the harm principle which you've applied.
So the future implications that it leads to for the children that it's going to how those Uyghur children are going to grow up and have a resentment towards the Chinese people, how the Muslim community are going to have a stance against Chinese people around the world. It's going to cause so many problems for. It's going to cause a lot of problems for Chinese people, because the Muslim people won't be having that, And I see it in my little sister in school. She's saying that her Chinese friends are getting bullied by Muslim people because
that's wrong.
Yeah, I know it is wrong, but it's that whole thing of do unto others as you do unto yourself. So you see how the Chinese government are treating, but it's the Chinese government, so it's much more like the Chinese people aren't like that.
Would you like a drink, coffee or tea?
I've got a water, thank you.
I'll have a tea as well.
I don't drink caffeine.
Market brother, I think what it is, what Imran is saying is, so say you, for example, go to China, and the people say, oh, Brother Marquis has come all the way from the UK, let's listen to him as to why we need to change our ways, yes? And you come up with all of these reasons, yes? And they basically say, no, but using your principle, Marquis, this is for the greater good, and that's why we've locked them up.
How would they be able to explain that it is for the greater good?
I'll explain to you. This is the Chinese government speaking now. Look, we have 1 billion population. We need to maintain our
stability.
Culture. We need to maintain our law and order. We need to have any threat that might be a threat to the stability of the greater society. We need to curb that. We have these separatist groups who, some of whom have carried out attacks. And this, we believe, stems from their ideology. They call it Religion X, Islam. What we need to do then is to protect the 997 million people. We need to curb these people's individual rights, just like we would put the serial killer in prison, or we would. So the children, we're going to take them away because this is a safeguarding issue. They are indoctrinating their children to become like them. So we're going to put them into orphanages where we can teach them Han Chinese standards, Han Chinese language, so they become productive members of our society. Anyone who's in a religious authority, they're going to have death. We're going to put them to death because they are teaching this ideology. We need to remove them from their specific ethnic bias, which leads to their religion. So we're going to make sure that we
restrict them of the culture.
We're going to take away their culture. We're going to mix their race with our Han Chinese race. So we're going to make sure we're going to force the women to marry Han Chinese people. We're going to any men who are in prison, we're going to put a soldier into their home so that he lives with them, and hopefully they will. And we're going to do this now. This limited harm, they would say limited harm, is going to lead to a greater good. Now the question for me as a Muslim, I have a moral standard of morality that is outside of human society that I can refer to. Because Allah says many things that will allow me to say that this is wrong, and we can come to those in a second. The question is, if you're just applying the harm principle or utilitarianism, which is minimizing the harm to the greater number of people, is better than minimizing the harm.
I don't think then that's still not a feasible option. It's still not a feasible option because instead, I don't know, the Chinese government could have welcomed the Uyghur people with open arms and said, let's share your culture with us. It's a rich culture. So I never knew about Uyghurs before this whole incident happened. It's a really interesting set of peoples.
Marky, would it be fair? Sorry, would it be fair that you would have no other mechanism other than your subjective opinions about it being right or wrong? Is that a fair statement that I've just made there?
Yeah, probably.
Yes.
Probably.
So this is where. This is where the guidance of God is so necessary, Because what you've just demonstrated now is that without that guidance, it is purely a subjective conclusion that another individual can reach a completely opposite conclusion based upon their subjective reasoning, their nurture and their nature, right? And you have no mechanism to be able to say that as a matter of fact what you're doing is immoral and wrong. But when you put God into the equation, it's only then you can say, it's not my opinion, it's not what I think. Allah has told me that if you take the life of one innocent soul, it's as if you've taken the life of all of humanity, right? As if you've killed all of humanity. So don't do it. Okay? Now that's a matter of fact, that's a statement of fact that I'm making, based upon, of course, my acceptance of it coming from God, right? But can you see the need now, where if we want to have a well-defined moral code,
God makes it
that we need we need an objective presence there.
That's the opposite of anarchy.
Right? Would you accept that, Parky? Let's
I'm taking Shahada.
But let's be fair. Let's underline things as we go along. It's fair, and I think you're a very fair person. I'll be honest with you. Nice conversation.
This is your fitra talking, bro.
Right?
You know this is wrong.
So now you accept that we need this component, right? Okay. So I'll let Imran come back into it now.
So this kind of goes back to the first question about God being in everywhere, and are we when you talked about God as being an entity, if we talk about an objective morality, then that requires there to be an origin for this, and it can't be something that I bring from myself or you bring from yourself and claim that it is. Do you understand? It has to be outside of human experience. Okay, this requires there to be a conscious being that's outside of human experience that can communicate to us that this is what is right and this is what is wrong. Now, for Muslims, it's very straightforward. When you make a cake, are you in the cake?
No.
When God created the universe, He's not in the universe. That's very, very simple.
Does God eat the cake?
Sorry?
Does God
does not need to eat.
Not yet.
He doesn't need to eat or drink anything.
So the point here is that the idea of there being a distinction between the creator and the created is intuition. It's your fitra tells you this makes sense. And it makes sense on many levels. It allows there to be an objective morality. It allows there to be a conduit, people who can come as conduits of the message for mankind. And if you look at history, separated by time, geography, culture, language, there have been people who come forward and said, God has communicated with me and He's communicated this message. And if you look at overall at these messages, there is an underlying theme. God is one, worship without partners. That's the basic theme. Now you can go into other cultures and look at this as well. Even if you take something as bizarre as the Greek pantheon, there is a ultimate being who everyone else is underneath. So there is this concept of an ultimate being. Even in Hinduism, that Brahma is the ultimate being, and then you have all these other lesser beings below.
I'm sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you for offering.
So we have this. For us, it's clear that that we need to have an objective morality outside of society. Why? Because if the society agrees we're going to do these to these people, I've got no way of objecting. Everyone voted for it. It's fine. Just because it's legal, it's not doesn't make it moral. So legality and morality are two separate things. So hence we need an ultimate being who can communicate through, we would say, messengers or prophets to the people. This is your standard of morality. So Allah says in the Quran, I'll give you a few verses only. So Allah says in the Quran, one verse you've been given, that we have created all people equal, and the only difference between people are the ones who are pious in my eyes. I'm paraphrasing. The other verse is that I created you as from one soul and made you into different natures and cultures.
From one soul. Okay.
Made you into different natures and cultures so that you can
know one another.
You come to know one another. So the variety of humanity is a blessing. When you have other statements, do not let the hatred of a people make you go into transgression. So that means even if you hate someone, you have to be just.
You can't be unjust to them.
The last verse, paraphrase the last verse, do justice even if it's against yourselves. So we're told to be just. How just? Even if I have to condemn myself with my justice, I have to do that because justice is the ultimate thing. So now I have a standard of morality. if this person has tried to blow up, say there's someone tries to blow up the parliament.
Yeah.
You capture that person, you punish them.
Yeah.
I can't touch his wife, children, uncle,
it's just him.
Just him.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's justice.
Yeah.
Now I can look at the Chinese model and say, if there are people who are a threat to your nation, find that individual and you punish them. You don't take a whole people and collectively punish them. Now that can only come from my external source of morality, which is objective morality, and that needs a creator who isn't mingled in the universe. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
So that's how I arrive at it. So I'm saying that I understand. I mean, you're a great guy. Clearly, you know, you're well-rounded. You've learned lots of things, and you've sort of arrived at where you are.
Just behind you. You can come on this side.
When it comes to dealing with these things, you're going to be left without a way of dealing with it. And that was what Abbas was saying earlier.
Okay, yeah.
What are your thoughts?
In my time, like through my experience, I've never been through the atrocities that the Chinese are putting the Uyghurs through. But been through some shit, you know, so, as we all have, you know, like life is about that natural rhythm of high notes and low notes, you know. It's like my aim for me is to have a nice monotonous hum, you know, in life, you know, just like that's it. That's for me. I'll be happy with that. And I don't, I still think it's God is you define God as being objective, but I still see it as subjective because it's, you know, there's people out there, there's Satanists out there that believe like they can do this and like they've got a God, you know, so it's like everyone's got their own God in a sense, and it's just like at the moment who's got the best God, you know.
See, Marky, the point here is this.
Sorry.
It's okay. The point here is this. We've underlined the fact that objective morality can only come from a creator. Now the question is, in the world that you explained when we first had our conversation, that it's a mess. Yes?
It's a mess.
That it's a huge mess as to how we, the human race, are interacting with not only one another, but interacting with nature, with the world itself. We're like a leech, a parasite. Yes.
Parasitical race.
Okay. So now, not only have you accepted that the only way of reaching objective morality is the creator, but you've already, in the very opening statement or first few statements that you made, that we are in a dire situation. You've now highlighted the need for that objective morality in order to sort ourselves out. So not only have you now accepted, really, in reality, I hope I'm not misrepresenting you. And now the thing is this. You know that there is only one way of objective morality, which is the creator. You've now demonstrated that we need this objective morality. Now my question to you is, why don't you, inshallah, take the Shahada, join Islam, and join that objective morality, which now gives